What's up, guys? Welcome back to FishOfHex. Appreciate you stopping in. Today's video, we're going to be doing the complete breakdown of the 45-gallon frag system as well as the 125-gallon reef and combining both of those systems here in the new 200-gallon frag tank. Now, I'm still a little under the weather, I have a scratchy throat, so I might sound kind of funky, but I wanted to get this video out. It's been like a week or so since I really got any good content out, and that's just unusual for me. So I'm going to tough it out and show you guys this whole process. So let's go ahead and get into it. If this is your first time visiting the channel, please check out part 1 and 2 of this build series so you know what's going on. Alright, let's go ahead and start this process by making the frag racks. Now don't worry, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but the reason why I am showing you it again is because I did something a little bit different this time. I'm actually taking 4 sheets of acrylic, clamping them together, and drilling all 4 at the same time. The reason for this is I have to make 8 for this system, and honestly it would just take forever to do one at a time. But, you know, regardless, it did take a little bit of effort to get through all 4 sheets, but at the end, they all worked out well, and I'm glad that I decided to do it that way. Once I finished drilling the racks, I went ahead and cleaned them all up with the mini torch and then put on the 1/2-inch dowels. Now, I did decide to go a 3/4 inch length on the dowels because I want to have these racks as close to the bottom of the tank as I can because it is 10 inches tall and I am putting my tangs in there. So I want them to have a good enough room to swim around. Now, as you can see, that is the old rack from the 45-gallon frag system, and see how tall it is within that tank. So that would simply not work out well for the tanks. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the new one here and transfer all the coral over. All right, now that we have the new frag rack in there and we are transferring the coral over, let me go ahead and break down what I've done to this system so far. Now, as you can see, I have one low boy full of water that is running through the sump. Now, I did this on purpose because I wanted to be able to manipulate the flow to each one of the tanks, but I also wanted to make the transition a little bit easier from breaking down the frag tank and the 125-gallon reef. Now, you might be asking yourself, how does this make the transition easier? Well, it's very simple. It takes less water to get the system running. And the reason why I did this is I went ahead and did a big water change on the reef tank, and as well as pull water out of the frag system and dumped all of that along with some new water and some salt, which you guys saw me mixing earlier, and pretty much got the system started that way. Now, the reason why I did this is I'm pulling coral out of a tank and putting it pretty much into the same water that they came out of, cutting down on issues that you might have with the transition between one tank to another. Okay, now that I have that right side running and I've transferred the coral out of the 45-gallon frag tank into it, it's time to go ahead and move on to the 125-gallon. Now, I did this over a 2-day period. The first day, I simply just removed everything that wasn't attached and added it to that right side. Now, I also want to mention that I did remove the EB8 bar from the frag tank as well as the PM1 module, which allowed me to have the temperature and the pH probe. Now, I went ahead and just ran a 15-foot Aquabus cable from this tank to the new one and connected those devices up, allowing me to keep stable temperature throughout the night. Well, as you guys can see, the tank looks pretty bare, and to be honest with you, this is when it finally hit me that I was taking the system down. But it's okay because nothing is meant to last forever. We can only move forward in life, so let's go ahead and get started with that process. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and hit my switch there, and pretty much turns off all the pumps in the tank. Now, I'm basically going to pump out as much water as I possibly can. So I started with the sump because there's nothing really living in there besides the marine pier blocks, which I then later transferred over as soon as the water got low. But I'm just going to go ahead and simply pump as much water as I possibly can into that left low boy, filling it up. That way, when I start transferring coral, I have a place to put them. Once I pulled all the water I could out of the sump, I went ahead and moved that pump into the main display, pulling water out into the new system. Now, I am going to go ahead and fill up the left low boy first, then go ahead and start filling up the 60-gallon cube. Once both tanks are full, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the ball valve and start running everything through the one system. While we got the low boy in the 60-gallon cube filling up from the main display, it's time to get in here and break down these rock structures. Now, I will admit I made a solid effort to catch my fish, but they're not dumb. As soon as the net got in the water, they were nowhere to be seen. So with that being said, breaking down this reef tank pretty much involved me getting the rock apart without smashing the tank itself, not getting bit by the eel, and not getting stung by the rabbitfish, all along with trying not to crush my cleanup crew or any of the fish. So, on top of that, not trying to kill any coral. So the process was pretty nerve-wracking, and honestly, I hated every second of it. Regardless, the first thing I did is I went ahead and removed as much of the acropore as I could. Now, I did get some colony-sized chunks, but most of it was already encrusted on the rock, so I had to simply break off pieces of it. Now, I did set everything aside within the low boy and put it all on frag plugs later in the day. Once that was done, it was time to move on to the left rock structure. As you can see, I am wiggling it in an attempt to break the grip of the epoxy. Now, that stuff is really on there. It's awesome while the tank is running. You don't have to worry about your rock falling, but damn, when I was trying to take this apart and try not to smash all my colonies, but I do end up smashing it against the power head because I didn't have enough room to get it out. But that's okay. I just picked that stuff up and fragged it later. But either way, this epoxy is awesome when you're trying to make structures, but when it comes to taking them apart, what a huge pain in the ass. Now, on top of that, the green star polyps pretty much glued those two rocks together. But either way, this rock structure was really, really, really easy compared to the middle one, and you guys will see the struggle that I went through to get that rock structure apart. All right, moving on to the fun part, middle rock structure. Now, removing these zoanthic colonies and the gorgonium were pretty easy because they're not so much attached to the rock structure. Now, coral did grow in between the two, but they were, simply just take them out and put them in the new tank. Now, when it comes to the middle rock structure, because this is all the rock that is left in the tank, all the fish in the cleanup crew are all heading that direction in order to hide from me, and that just kind of added to the issue. Now, if I could have done things differently, I probably would have got a bunch of PVC, bigger PVC, and kind of threw it in the tank so the fish would have a place to hide other than in the rock structure that I'm trying to take apart. But lessons learned for the next tank. Now, to add to the issue, I'm still pumping water from this system in order to fill up the new one, so it does expose the bird's nest and the Montipora to the air, but it was only for about 3 to 5 minutes, which didn't have any negative impact on the coral whatsoever. Now, I did have to come in here and go ham on this bird's nest because there was no way I was getting it off that structure, and I couldn't get to the actual rocks where they were connected via the epoxy to be able to break the structure apart without taking out that colony first. Now, I simply went in there with my snips and just kind of broke it up into big chunks and transferred that stuff over to the new tank, which was later fragged up. Once I finished trimming back the bird's nest to the point where I could see the epoxy, I went ahead and attempted to break it with my hand, and then I tried my pliers. It just wasn't going to happen. I didn't realize how much epoxy I actually used when I built this structure, and I'm glad that I did because it did hold up for this long. For the exception, a couple months ago, I added a little bit more because of the snowflake eel. But other than that, the rock structure was too strong, so I had to go about it a different way. Now, what I did is I simply twisted it and released the bottom two rocks and laid the entire structure down on its side. Now, this definitely pissed off the snowflake eel. The rabbitfish was freaking out, so I went ahead and took this opportunity, now that the coral was back underneath the water, to go ahead and remove as many of the fish as I possibly could. Now, catching a fish was pretty easy at this point. I feel that they didn't even want to be in there anymore. They kind of just let me do it. As you can see, Reggie's not putting up really any of a fight. But, they were in there throughout that whole process, getting pretty stressed out. Plus, there's not very much water for them to swim, so they were all ready to go into the new tank. Now, I did get most of the fish out for the exception of the hippo tang and the foxface, which were the fish that I really wanted to catch because they were the most stressed out. But regardless of how little rock was in this tank, they still wouldn't let me catch them. Now, I did go ahead and use my pliers. As you can see, kind of struggled to get this rock apart regardless of it being on its side. And now that I look back, there's no way that I would have broke that apart with it standing straight up. It just wasn't going to happen. Once the rock structure was completely disassembled, I went ahead and put the rocks that had coral on it into the low boy and then the others into the 60-gallon cube. Now, I did add 35 pounds of dry rock to that cube, so shout out to Murphy's Reefing for hooking me up with that. This is so that the eel will have a nice place to hide, as well as, whatever other fish I decide to put in there. Now, I did end up putting the fox face in the 60-gallon cube, and then later on that week, I put the blue hippo tang in there because she was destroying my frag tank as she started to destroy the frag racks in the main display. She just likes to pick things up and put them wherever the hell she wants. Now, she's been in that cube for almost 2 weeks now. No signs of stress. She's fat. She's swimming around. Really isn't any issues now. She definitely doesn't have the length that I want for her to swim, but if she starts showing any signs of stress, I'll probably end up putting her up for sale for a local pickup, and I'll keep everybody in the loop on what's going on with that fish. Well, guys, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As you can see, the coral from the main display transferred over just fine to that low boy. Now, I do have a ton of fragging to get done, which will happen over the next few months. Now, I am going to go slow on that because, as I mentioned in the previous video, I don't want drops in alkalinity and cause issues with the coral. So stay tuned to the website because I will be updating stuff usually on a daily or weekly basis, depending on what I actually cut up that week. And all that, of course, all that stuff will be for sale. So if there's something that you wanted in the reef tank, there's a good chance that it will be up for sale within the next month or two. All right, so if you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.